Hello, I'd like to bring to order the first meeting of the year of our Parks, Recreation, and Community Service is February 6th, and welcome to the new year. Let's have a roll call, please.
Certainly. Commissioner Kahn?
Here.
Commissioner Ropfogel?
Here.
Commissioner Sharkey? Here. Commissioner Sinanian?
Here.
And Commissioner Ward?
Here.
The agenda for the February 6, 2008 meeting was posted on the bulletin outside City Hall and on the City of Glendale's website on Friday, February 1st, 2008 at 1 o'clock p.m.
Okay, our first item.
Our first item is under introductions and presentations, and that is the recognition of the 2008 Glendale Rose Float.
And with that, I'd like to invite Karen Fries up, and Karen is our representative to this body, as well as the Glendale Rose Float Association.
Thank you, George. Good afternoon, President Ward, members of the Commission. I've been asked to give a quick recap of our 2008 Glendale Rose Float entry. And Sabrina in Channel 6, if you could run that tape for me during this time. Our 94th entry this year was entitled Bon Voyage, and it was the winner of the Mayor's Trophy for the Best City Entry, National or International. The float depicted the historic tower of the Grand Air Terminal in Glendale and was so beautiful. The front was done in a large world map. The back was done in colorful gardens. And everyone who saw the float, not only in the production, but the final product, was just very, very complimentary. The float was 17 feet in width, 18 feet in width and 35 feet in length, and was just absolutely beautiful with a variety of flowers. We did have 10 riders this year, and we had over 300 high school volunteers who decorated the float for us. So again, it was a great winner, and we are definitely getting ready for our 2009 entry. We've finished the paperwork, and the overall theme will be entertainment for 2009, and we'll be coming back to you probably in the next month or two with some design details for that float. So again, we want to say congratulations to the City of Glendale for an outstanding entry. And also wanted to remind you that we won the Governor's Trophy in 2007 for our Bear Essentials. The 2006 won the Isabella Coleman Trophy Award for Best Presentation of Color and Harmony for Imagination Express. And in 2004, we won the Volunteers Trophy for One Man Band. So anyway, we've got a great line of entries and winners. So again, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a great... The Mayor's Trophy is fantastic, and I know the float was outstanding this year. The colors and the weather was great. That was the best part.
And we thank all of you for your support each year in this endeavor, so thank you again.
Any comments from our fellow commissioners?
It was one of my favorites. It was wonderful.
Oh, good. Well, we're thinking if we're going with an entertainment this year for the overall theme, it's already been kind of tossed out there about maybe exploring something that we could do with the Alex Theater. It was such a grand idea to have something appropriate for Glendale depicted in our float that maybe we'll go with something along those lines again this year.
Right, sticking with the
I'm
theme.
just curious, did you know that John Wayne used to live in Glendale?
Someone
And was
brought
an
that
usher
up,
at
too.
one of the other theaters. And
Right,
The
right.
high school.
Glendale
Famous
High
for
School.
Glendale High
Yeah.
School.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we'll look at various themes, but really a winner this year and truthfully depicted our Glendale history.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Yes. Congratulate the Rose Bowl group.
Will do.
Yes,
Thank you so
please.
much.
Okay, the next item.
Our next item is also under introductions and presentations, and it's the announcement of the 2008 Winter Wonderland event.
That's why we were going to ask Karen to stay up here and announce that as well. Karen Fries Day today.
Thankfully, I'm the first two, and then you don't have to look at me anymore today. I want to invite everyone to our 30th annual Winter Wonderland. That will be this Saturday, February 9th at Brand Park. 1601 West Mountain Street, starting at 10 a.m. And we do have the details on the screen. This year's event is co-sponsored by the Brand Boulevard of Cars and will be held on the west side of the park, and we'll have 70 tons of snow this year. We've been having 50. Last year we had 60. This year we have 70. So all of our play areas will be a little bit bigger. The snow is manufactured on site, and our staff arrives at 5:30 that morning to get everything lined up so that we can start at 10. There are a variety of 12 different community and city groups participating this year. Jewel City Kiwanis will be out there selling hot dogs. We'll also have the Red Cross, the police department, neighborhood services, etc. So it's a great family event. Everything is self-contained at the park. You can come, enjoy all the activities, buy lunch, do hands-on activities, all for a nominal fee. And the thing that's really interesting to me, which tells you how old and how long I've been here, I was here for the first Winter Wonderland that started with 5 tons of snow and 1 slide. So we've come a long way in 30 years, and I certainly welcome the community to come out and enjoy this event.
Thank you. That's a fantastic event. My daughter's worked as a volunteer in years past, and I've attended. Just make sure that everybody brings some snow clothes because it is cold.
Exactly. And especially socks and
Gloves.
pieces of shoes.
Yes.
It's a little muddy. Any other questions?
Any other comments? Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Next presentation.
Our next item is a presentation of a check to the city by the Greater Glendale Council on Aging.
And with that, I'd like to introduce Carolyn McCune. And Carolyn is responsible for our youth, family, and senior programs and is doing a fantastic job. And we've got an announcement here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, President Ward, Commissioners. I am very pleased to introduce Julie Find, who is the President of the Greater Glendale Council on Aging. She has a report on our recent senior health fair, and she also has some really good news for our senior services program.
Good afternoon, President Ward and Commissioners. I'm Julie Fine with Lakeside Healthcare and President of the Greater Glendale Council on Aging. The Greater Glendale Council on Aging held a health information fair in conjunction with the flu clinic at the Adult Recreation Center on Tuesday, November 13th. We offered free screening, information to seniors, and giveaways and raffles. Each participant paid $100 to participate, with the understandings that 100% of the proceeds would be given to the City of Glendale's Senior Service Home Delivered Meal Program. I would like to thank all of the healthcare professionals who contributed to the worthy program. Last year, the event generated $1,425. This year, we generated $2,025. On behalf of the Greater Glendale Council on Aging, I'd like to present the City of Glendale Senior Service Program a check in the amount of $2,025 for the Home Delivered Meal Program. Understanding the importance of the Home Delivered Meal Program, for a second year, Lakeside Healthcare has made a generous donation by matching the amount raised from the Health Information Fair. So at this time, on behalf of Lakeside Healthcare, I'd like to donate another $2,025, making that a total of
Very good.
$4,050. And I'd like to make one other announcement. Lakeside would like to continue its support to the Glendale Senior Program. So Lakeside's pulled together a senior health fair, which will be held on Thursday, March 6th, from 8:30 to 11:30 at the Glendale Recreation Center. We're going to provide cholesterol screening, bone density, glucose, pulse oximetry, blood pressure, cardio screening, and pulmonary screening. So if seniors would like additional information, they can call 818-548-3775. That's 818-548-3775. And there'll be flyers going out regarding that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's great when a organization supports the public good and really comes in with the financial support and then doing all this good in the health fair. That's outstanding. And I hope that we can follow up with some type of recognition plaque or something to your organization.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Okay, our next presentation.
Our next item is the annual report on the Doctor's House by the Glendale Historical Society.
I will ask Eve Rappaport to introduce our guests. And Eve is responsible for our Cultural Affairs section.
Hi. Nice to see you all, Parks and Recreation Commissioners. Over the last year and a half, 2 years or so, I've been working pretty closely, mostly with Isabel Meyer, who's the lead docent at the Doctor's House, but is a member of the Glendale Historical Society. And I have to say, Isabel has done an amazing job of cataloging everything in the house, of letting us know, just really being a steward with a capital S in terms of just the shape of the house and things in the park, and really being our eyes and ears in the park. And I made a joke with her. I was there last week, and I made a joke that, you could eat off the floor in that house. It's so clean. And she was telling me about how she scrubbed the bathroom. And, so I really think she does an amazing job. And it's all volunteer, and it's really a labor of love. It was the Glendale Historical Society's idea that maybe they should do an annual report. We have a long tradition of working with them and collaborating with them. And so today, I guess, marks the beginning of what will be a long tradition of an annual report from the Glendale Historical Society on programs and things that are going on at the Doctor's House. So I want to introduce Isabel Meyer, our lead docent, and Elaine Wilkerson is here also, who is a board member with the Glendale Historical Society, and probably needs no further introduction. So.
We don't know what she did in her private life.
Good afternoon, President Ward and members of the Commission. It's my pleasure to come to you today with a brief report of what's been happening at the Doctor's House over the past year, as well as a little preview of what we can look forward to during 2008. This year marks the 10th anniversary, the 25th anniversary of the Doctor's House being open to the public. We are open every Sunday from 2 to 4 for tours, and we also have school tours. I'll tell you the attendance in just a minute, but I wanted to preface this so you can see these are some of the thank you notes that we get from Glendale third grade students after their visit to the Doctor's House. The picture on the left shows a child playing the Graces game, and the picture on the right shows, of course, the Doctor's House as they saw it. So this is one of the highlights of our giving tours to the school kids, is getting these notes telling us how much they enjoyed their visit. As I'm speaking, you're going to see a series of slides or pictures of events of this past year. So we'll just kind of run through these as I speak to save some time. During 2007, some of the events we had was a Valentine's Day dinner, a fundraiser, a needle art exhibit, a Pretty in White exhibit which showed off vintage Victorian clothing, a quilt exhibit, and then our annual candlelight tours, which were extremely successful this past year. During the year, we had 1,154 visitors going through the house on Sundays and 550 Glendale school children during the week. The school tours are my personal favorite. Not only do we show the kids through the museum and they get to do hands-on activities inside, but outside we have them play Victorian-style games and also do Victorian-style chores. And they absolutely love it. The girls do laundry on a washboard and hang up the clothes to dry and sweep the porches, which I personally appreciate. And the boys water the roses with the old galvanized steel watering cans and beat the rugs with a carpet beater, which gets rid of a lot of excess energy. So we really enjoy these tours a lot, and I think they do too. Now, without further ado, I want to move on to 2008. What we're proposing for this year is, right now we're in the middle of, we're revving up to the drawing this Sunday for a Valentine's Day dinner raffle. I'm proposing that during April and May that we have an exhibit that coincides with the 90th anniversary, is a strange name, but it was 90 years ago that the 1918 flu epidemic wiped out 25 million people around the world. And I've done some research on this, and since one of the early Doctor's House residents passed away in the house of the Spanish flu, and PBS filmed in 1998 a segment of American experience at the Doctor's House about the Spanish flu, we want to create that exhibit, and I think it'll be of great interest to the community. Also, we will have, probably during October and November, an exhibit on a comparison of the presidential election in 1908 and 2008 to contrast the vast differences in the political system since then. Then, of course, we'll have our candlelight tours again, which is an ongoing event for us. I should also mention that during this last year, and Eve touched on this, we did a complete inventory of literally thousands of artifacts inside the house and gave it a thorough cleaning. So the house does look good right now, and of course we're motivated to keep it that way. We spent approximately 250 volunteer hours during July alone to spruce up the house, so that was a big effort for just a very small group of people. We're looking forward to the exterior painting. It is our understanding from Mr. Chapshin that the city has been able to get funding to repaint the house, which is badly needed and will be really nice all around. Recently, a employee of the Gene Autry Museum has come to us and has offered to help us spruce up our general exhibits throughout the house a little bit, because after 25 years it does get a little dusty. And so we have rehung some of the wall hangings, brought some artifacts out that were in storage that are now visible on the walls, and done various ways of kind of just sprucing up the museum. And I think this will certainly make it even more interesting in the future. Also, the Historical Society Board has asked me to create a permanent Glendale history exhibit with a timeline showing the various events in Glendale set against the backdrop of statewide, countrywide, and worldwide events, so people can kind of see a parallel development. And I'm going to be moving on to that as soon as possible. So I think that covers everything. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Wow.
Terrific job. Yeah, wow, that's
A lot of energy. And this is as a volunteer, my gosh.
We're all volunteers.
We need to clone you.
No questions?
Yeah.
Thank you for all you do.
No, it's fantastic. I really appreciate that and look forward to next year. So with the energy you have, I understand next year will be even better. I like the way you organize those kids, work the energy out of them.
And just
Very
for the commission's information, the painting that Isabel's talking about is not just about $2,000 or $3,000. It's up to the $40,000 range. I'm sorry, $80,000.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Because it is a specialty, and we really are going to go through the entire building.
Yeah, we need to inventory that and stuff because those gyms are, in storage. Make sure they're well preserved. Well, thank you. Okay, last item.
Our last item under introductions and presentations is the recognition of Lila Batar, Project Manager, for 10 years of service to the City of Glendale.
And I'll step down here
Yes.
and do that. You're going to join me?
Yes, I will.
Presenting? Okay. Commissioners, normally the city recognizes staff that have been here 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Every 5 years or so, there's a recognition of full-time employees, but not one for part-time or hourly employees. And we have Lila Batar, who's been with the city 10 years. Doesn't fit into the category of full-time, so doesn't get quite that recognition from the city that we do on a monthly basis. We usually get staff that sits back here and they're recognized. So what we would like to do is we'd like to recognize Lila's contribution to the department, to the city. And what I'll do is I want to give a brief background on Lila's professional background and ask her to go through some of the projects that she's done in the city that really have enhanced the city, the Parks and Recs Department, and just the overall quality of life for the city. Lila has a Master of Architecture degree from the Southern California Institute of Architecture in Los Angeles, and she got that in 1983. She has a Bachelor of Science in Architectural Engineering from the University of Baghdad, Iraq, in 1979, and she is a registered architect since 1988. She's served in a number of volunteer community positions. She was recently a commissioner for the City of Glendale's Design Review Board. Stand up here, yeah. That's right, come on over here. She was appointed a member representing the Homeowners Coordinating Council in Glendale Downtown Strategic Plan. She was elected to the Board of Directors, Friends of Glendale Public Library from 1998 to 2000. Glendale Community Representative to Disney Campus Expansion Advisory Group from 1999 to 2001. She was appointed member of the Technical Advisory Committee of the Glendale Bikeway Master Plan from 1996 to 1998. Vice President of the Glendale Homeowners Coordinating Council, 1995. Industry Advisory Committee member, Implementation of Building Codes, City of Los Angeles, 1993 to 1995. American Institute of Architects Committee on Pro Practice and Emergency Preparedness, 1990 to 1993. She's done a number of projects, as I said, in the city, and I'll let her go through it. But Civic Auditorium, the Sports Complex, Duke Mason Wilderness Park, she's had her hands in a number of these, and her expertise really is, to me, she brings a design element that we don't normally have in our department. She has a definite eye for what looks good, what combinations of features and colors look good, and she's been used not only by us, but by Public Works, by the city manager's office, most recently looking at the exterior of this building, the City Hall building. So she really does bring an expertise in that area. Some of her hobbies, we should mention, she does have a daughter, Tessa. I think Tessa's back here. I would assume she takes up a lot of your time.
Being
What's up with you?
I should put it that way.
And Lila's hobbies are jewelry design, collage art, photography, gardening, biking, hiking, swimming, and traveling. We'll let the PowerPoint first?
Sure.
Okay.
I wanted to just mention one thing, that my goal joining the city family was to emphasize aesthetics in project and to bring value to aesthetic, and I kind of pursued that throughout my career with the city and will continue to do that. The first project was handed to me was the Civic Auditorium, and it was the renovation of the Civic Auditorium. And first I thought it was a done deal, but when I walked into the project and got familiar with it, I realized that the architect that was selected didn't really do the building justice. Some of the things they did is, for example, some of the things they did is that we have all these, why is it doing that? Oh, okay. You see all these, on the right-hand side, you see all these carved trusses and, yeah,
Press down.
I'm not pressing, I'm not sure who's doing it. And the architect put a chipboard ceiling and covered all the various features of the building. So as we were going into construction, I started, this mouse is not really following, so I'm going to leave it alone, started redesigning the building while it was going through construction, redesigned all the bathroom spaces, redesigned the downstairs area. And the biggest challenge we had is that you see the ceiling in the upper auditorium. That was the ceiling. I included these before and after. That was the ceiling was to remain after the renovation. And one day the contractor said, "Lila, I have a surprise for you." And he takes me up a catwalk above that ceiling, and I find these gorgeous hand-carved trusses hostage inside that ceiling. So the next day I worked out a design proposal to open up that ceiling. Contractor priced it. I went to Nello and I pleaded to take it forward. Nello was convinced. Nello Iacona was our director at the time. And Nello took it to the commission. They loved it. We took it to council. The commission supported us. And with everybody's wonderful effort, we have this result in the building. I was asked to, actually I wasn't even asked to be involved in the sports complex. One day I was walking in the conference room and I saw the material board, and I don't know, maybe George Valteria remembers that. All the colors proposed on the project was, everything was brown. Brown roof, brown tan blocks, everything was brown. So I approached again Nello and Scott, and I asked if I could bring a new color and finish scheme to the project. I felt it was just a downer. People come after work, they want something to lift them up. So they asked me to proceed, and I brought some option, and this is what we really concluded. It was a sports color that I thought was appropriate, juxtaposed it artistically a little bit, and came up with this theme, and then coordinated with the landscape architect on the tree color, the flower, you know, everything to pull through. Maple Park upgrades, we added restroom, elevator, and an art element, the sundial. I designed the restroom over there as well, and managed the project. As George indicated, Duke Majan Wilderness Park, I partnered with John Pearson, is the project manager on that, and I was asked to sort of provide architectural services. We had a historic architect. I did all the finishes and the design on the project. Generally, in the restrooms, restrooms are usually, institutional restrooms are generally very bland, and people perceive them that way, and that's why I'd like to put a little bit of attention on the restroom in the design, because one, I think it brings up the image of the facility, and second, mostly people use the restroom. In this case, I selected an accent tile that kind of reflects the theme of the winery. The project you have on the left is a design. Actually, Public Works approached me to design a lunch and a lounge area for the employees. And one thing, that was a true opportunity for me to push the idea of bringing aesthetics. I thought if I could inspire the employees, that's the best message I could give. So I tried to use different design elements to do that there. Actually, Public Works ran out of money, and so I volunteered my hours, and I wanted to finish the project and bring in the design excellence kind of thing to it. I have to give a credit to my daughter Tessa here. You see that column on the right in the space? I had this column that I was stuck with. I didn't know what to do with it. Finally, I wanted to collage it, to turn it into some kind of an art element. So Tessa, my daughter, was 5 years old, and we used to come on the weekend. It took us a couple of weekends, 3 weekends, I think, and we were able to collage the column together. So we have something nicer. This is a collaboration effort with both Glendale Water and Power and Public Works, and it all started with the General Services Building. The General Services Building is the building that faces the police building. And I know change is the new buzzword, but this was truly a process of change. If you remember, the Historic Society went through somewhat of a battle to save that building. At one point, it was slated for demolition, one of the options on the police building. After that, the time came to repaint the building. So Scott Reese heard about that and asked me if I want to design colors. I did. I designed an option for it. And I thought, wow, this is the time to expose the beauty of this building after people put all that effort to save it. Gave the board to Public Works. Again, typically it was the municipal beige was the color for all these civic buildings. It was a little bit complex, and the theme and Public Works felt too much maintenance. So I got the word municipal beige is going on that building. And you can imagine I was truly devastated. I was so devastated I didn't know what to do. So the only thing was left for me is I went up to Jim Starber's office. And I definitely had teary eyes. Jim sometimes will bring that up. And I pleaded to him. I truly pleaded to him to do something to this building, not to miss this opportunity. Jim took ownership into the situation. He approached Public Works. He asked me to simplify the scheme. So we worked out different compromises. Then Jim had a mock-up done on the building. I used to see him taking directors, council members to show them. Everybody seemed to buy into that change. And we turned that page on the municipal beige. So now we have the General Services Building, then Glendale Water and Power approached me for a Grandview substation on San Fernando Road, and then the beautiful Howard substation, if you have noticed, the one when you drive into the parking structure, and then finally our iconic City Hall. Bar heights, I have for you before and after. This was a nice challenge. Too many components there, and I tried to pull them all together and have a nice flow for the building. And then the pending projects right now is Cedar, Heritage Garden, and Car Park. Cedar, of course, it was my professional goal was, one, to save the historic bungalow, and second, to try to design this park in a garden concept. And then thankfully to George, he was very supportive on the garden, and we were able to do that. Car, somehow, I was working on the restroom, and I fell in love with the park. I think I have such ownership with that park, and I really would love to do several upgrades for that park. That completes my presentation.
Well, we'd like to present you with this plaque for 10 years of service.
Thank you.
And congratulations. I know that all the people within City of Glendale may not know it, but you've touched their lives with the vision that you've put on their facilities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Lila. Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing us to do this.
Well, Lila is definitely full-time. And I've known Lila for years, and just the enthusiasm that she puts into every project. You forgot the Civic Center sign that I have to drive every time I drive by, and she loves the challenge, and with Cedar now we're looking forward to, and the research you do on everything. Of course, her proudest accomplishment is Tessa.
Yes. Okay, to move on, I think we have number 3.
Agenda item 3 are our oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. The commission may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The director may refer the matter to the proper section for investigation and report.
Okay, I have 2 cards, and let's start with Herbert Milano.
Good afternoon. My name is Herbert Milano, Commissioners and City staff. For a good number of years now, I think it's close to 6 years, I've been coming to City Council and from time to time to this commission to promote park space for Southern Glendale. And next month on the 1st is going to be the 8th anniversary of a fantastic report that is available on the web. It is called the Report of the Blue Ribbon Panel on Parks, Recreation Facilities, and Open Space. And it is, I took the liberty of making some copies, and I had some assistance from the Parks Department. It's an extensive report that shows in its most clarity the dire need for an effective strategy to solve the problems of park space. But here it is 8 years later, and to some extent we're still struggling in trying to achieve the objectives that were presented here. And I briefly want to mention on what would be page number 4, just a couple of the issues and the recommendations. The first recommendation was that the city must acquire properties in these service areas, areas 5 through 10. These properties must be acquired for use to provide no fewer than 5 mini parks, 2 neighborhood parks of at least 5 acres, and 1 town center park of a minimum 10 acres. Well, obviously, we lost the town center park. There's a significant need in the recreational planning areas 10 and 7. Our goal, the city's goal, was to have at least 6 acres per 1,000 residents. Then there was a minimum goal for the year 2010 of having 2 acres per 1,000. And you should know that recreational planning area 10 has 800 square feet of park space per 1,000. So one of my goals has been to try to bring to light the fantastic opportunity that we have with Central Park. And I used the example of Bryant Park in New York, and so I'd like to do that comparison, if I may, on PowerPoint. This was the original goal, Central Park, a new vision, to enhance the community's quality of life, to preserve open space, and to strengthen the bonds of the community. In 1977, we had a particular statement in the land use element to improve the livability of the total community for all Glendale residents, as expressed in the living, working, and shopping areas, as well as community facilities. In 1986, it stated, the planning division land use element stated, in the southern communities, many factors affect growth. In many areas, these factors are coupled with mixed and congested land use, inadequate open space, and overcrowded streets. Well, 10 years later, we have the recreation element, saying many of the multiple family neighborhoods in southern Glendale are completely over the carrying capacity of existing parks. Based on existing neighborhood park supply, it would be difficult to permit any additional residential development. In the year 2000, the general funding on this report says the city has not equitably invested in all of its neighborhoods in the development of park recreational facilities and open space. In 2004, we had roughly this particular proportionate distribution of parks. 52% of the population is over the above the 134 freeway. North of the 134 freeway, we have about 250 acres. And south of the 134 freeway, with 48% of the population, 25 acres. And of course, the goal is to have an equitable distribution of these resources throughout the city, to create a cultural urban space, to create a center for arts and culture, to create the concept of Bryant Park in the center of the city. So here's an example of Bryant Park in New York. It's located on 5th Avenue and 42nd Street, about 12 blocks from Central Park. And you can see that there's the New York Public Library in a fairly large area, which is about 4 acres, that was originally a reservoir of water for the city of New York back over 100 years ago. Well, here's the same concept if we were to take it to Glendale, where you have the Glendale Central Library with utilizing and maximizing all of the space for green space. And as you can see on the left on Brand, which is the redevelopment area, the concept was to create an adult recreation center in that area, galleries, performance halls, in an area that really enlivens the city. And it is essential now that we plan to have at least 10,000 more dwelling units within the next 3 years in the area south of the 134 freeway. Here's an example of Bryant Park. The library is at the far end. I'm almost done. And here's activities during the summer. And you can see sculptures that are being brought out to this particular central area. Here's an example of a temporary bowling alley that they put around the fountain. Here are evening performances and movies that are presented in the open air. And here's an example of the corner, I think that's on Avenue of the Americas and 42nd Street. Here's some of the other more delicious activities that can take place in the park. And the Blue Ribbon Declaration says that the creation of a large central park on the property commonly referred to as town center for a minimum of 7 acres. And of course, you look at the Blue Ribbon people. Here it's Mary Boger, Frank Quintero, Richard Ramirez, Father Shea, a listing of Glendale's best, making a recommendation that we do something significant for our Central Park. And here's another rendering that was done by a Disney artist on how this particular area could be used. Obviously, I'm promoting more of the green space. And I'm done with a particular PowerPoint. My objective is to highlight the tremendous need that we have for a true cultural center, an urban place. And as we look at the overbuilding of this area of Glendale, how important it is to finally create a place where people can come in from all over and create the type of environment that allows for additional buildings surrounding the park, because it creates a significant amount of value. And it is the kind of place that we already have. We have it in Bryant Park, in the northern, northwest part of Glendale. And I think that same concept in the middle of town can basically create the type of synergy for all the residents, for us to create something special, especially with all the hotels that are taking place. And I figure when people get tired of all the shopping, you have a cultural center for the rest of the population and all the guests that we may have, as well as a tourist attraction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Milano. I appreciate your passion for this, and I think you have the heart and mind of our Parks Department, and like to see some of this come to fruition. We'll actually see how our city managers and government handle it. I know that we're looking at improving that park currently, but thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
First of all, I want to. I'm not going to speak for the entire commission, but I don't think anyone on the commission would disagree with your concept in it's beautiful, it's fabulous. And if we didn't think that we wanted something like that for the city, I don't think any of us would be up here. We're all passionate about open space and parks. I did have one question about one of your figures, though. The 250 acres above the 134, does that include places like Oakmont 5 and...
No, this is all only developed parkland. But it does include the...
Duke-Majan?
No, it does not include Duke-Majan Park. This is developed parkland. It includes, though, the golf course on the Glen Oaks Canyon, for example.
the Shoal.
Shoal Canyon, I'm sorry.
And the sports complex.
Right, it includes the sports complex.
Right.
And of course, Verdugo Park, and when you add them all up. And it does not include Crescenta Valley Park.
That's county.
The county, which is county-owned, but it is surrounded totally by the city of Glendale. So if you look at it that way, the disparity is really fairly significant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is John Kimma.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is John Kima, and I live by Carr Park. I lived there for the last 20 years. I've seen it come from bad to good to where it is right now. I do believe we had a sit-down meeting with a neighborhood, people in the neighborhood back in June, I believe, of last year. And we decided, with the help of councilmen here, to what was going to happen with Carr Park. We know that the restroom and the little house had to be worked on because the roof is old. Now I understand I see it every day. I live there. They're putting the copper roof on there. All well and good, But the thing is that we're going to do the restrooms, we're going to do the whole enchilada, and we're going to make it look pretty. Well, what's going to happen with that there, and I can testify because I'm in that park 3 times a day walking a dog. And what's going to happen there is that eventually these kids are going to get up on top of that roof, there's going to be graffiti. And what's happening is right now is we closed off that area because there is no restrooms because they're working on it. And we put porta potties in there. Well, the kids are knocking over the porta potties and the garbage cans and all that there. Well, kids are kids. But this has happened a couple of times about a month ago. We have no visible police patrol in that park anymore. Every so often, a cop will come by. 2, we had a lighting survey done in that park, and he was there twice. And we need lights in that park. Those lights are in the trees, and they're illuminating the trees. So our park is dark. Also, the gentleman came by and did a survey on the playground. And by God, we've got a minimum of a playground. And I understood that there's going to be work done on that. But I don't know how long it takes for the commission or whoever to get there and say, you know what, we got to do something about this. We got a gang of kids in that neighborhood. We got swings in that there playground that belong to maybe a 6-month-old child. We got kids in there 8, 9, 10 years old, and they can't swing. You took our the monkey bars away. You took that. You took a lot of stuff away, but you never replaced it. My question is when is all this going to be done? It's been happening for a while. I'm only here to speak for some of the people in the neighborhood, and that's it. I don't know anything about protocol. All I know is we got problems. Closing the bathrooms, it became a problem, but I've talked to somebody and they're going to start closing them again. But I've got to say one thing before I quit. These bathrooms that were designed, they're designed in an L-form shape, so you can walk in, and supposedly it's privacy. All you're doing is giving kids access to the top of the roof so they can film the skateboarders shooting off the top of this here place where once was the basketball court. Now, we're having a big-time problem with skateboarders in there. Big time. So we're going to have to do something about that there, because people don't want to come in the park because of that there. We got people in there with tricycles and little 3-year-old kids, and what's happening is that they're coming down in vans, and they're running these damn kids off that thing. We have addressed this problem before, and I think hopefully we're going to close up the access so these kids will stop jumping and they won't be filming for the roof anymore. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your concerns, and I think that staff will address that later on. I believe there's some presentations on our capital improvement projects. You'll get an update on that project, and one of the park rangers is here and paying attention to your concerns regarding safety, so.
Yeah, and I know there's also a concern about the skateboarders,
Yeah.
which
Which
you're looking
we're going to be
into.
addressing.
But thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Okay, I have no more oral communications. Next item, consent.
Agenda item 4 are our consent items, including the minutes. The following are routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of the commission or audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such a request before a motion is proposed. And the lone consent item is the approval of the minutes of the commission regular meeting held on December 5th, 2007.
Commissioners, any adds or additions to it?
No, I'd move that those minutes be approved.
Okay. Okay, moved and seconded. Let's have roll call. Let's approve those.
Commissioner Khan?
Yes.
Commissioner Ropfogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Sharkey?
Yes.
Commissioner Sinanian? And Commissioner Ward?
Yes. Okay, let's see, business agenda.
Under our business agenda, our first item is an action item. It's the Soccer League proposed fee increase.
I'd like to call Gabrielle Winthrop to the podium. Gabrielle, as you know, is our supervisor of our Glendale Sports Complex. We're here proposing a fee increase today for our Soccer League program, which we've had some pretty severe behavioral issues, and so Gabrielle's here today to present that report for you.
Good afternoon, members of the Commission. I'm here today to recommend that the Commission approve the proposed increase of $145 per team per season. This would raise our registration rate from $600 per team per season to $745. We've been facing a number of issues for many years. It's not a horribly recent issue, although they have escalated quite a bit. In the past year, we have removed at least 170 individuals from our league. This does include entire teams that are removed for team-related behavior. We do provide every team manager with a set of the full rules at the beginning of each season, and the managers do sign that they receive these, and they understand that it is their responsibility to inform the entire team of these rules and to enforce them. And we're very clear in these rules about what would suspend a team for one game, one season, for up to a year, and also what would be an individual suspension, red cards, a certain number of red cards within a season, that sort of thing. The problems that we're facing are players and teams disobeying league rules, just general rules. We've had participants fighting. We've had large fights where 10 to 20 people all came onto the field at once fighting. We've had a physical assault on referees. We've had to escort referees to their cars at the end of the games. So we've had some violence issues in that way with our paid referees. And the most recent issue was an attempt to threaten and take lives. We had a person very upset about something that took place with his daughter, drive his vehicle onto the field and try to hit people with a vehicle.
Oh, my gosh.
So no one was injured. We're okay. We have decided that the next step that we can take in order to keep the league going, we don't want to cancel it at this point in time, but that what we will need is assistance with security. So we would like to hire an outside security agency. We do already have an existing contract. That's the same security company that is providing assistance up at Brand Park. And per season, it will cost us approximately $2,625 to have a security guard there during all of our games. So when we divide this across the 18 teams that will be participating, it is about $145 increase per team. So that's how we came up with that figure. We have already taken a few steps to help
alleviate some of the stress with the soccer season. We have reduced our seasons from 3 to 2. We did open up the fall season to, basically that's when our youth have their soccer league season. That's their prime season for AYSO. So that allowed for AYSO to have more time on the fields. And we've dropped the number of teams from 28 to 18. So we don't have as many teams that are participating that can cause problems. And we've reduced the number of nights by dropping it by 10 teams. That did allow us to open up one more night, which we've given to the youth.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, is this predominantly adult teams that is?
This is all adult teams.
Okay. One of the things that we may want to look into is some type of a revocable deposit. I mean, I'm not sure how many games they actually get per 745 if it breaks down to a cost per game. But if, say, they put a $500, $1,000 up as a team, that you give it back to them if they behave, and if not, so that could then offset some of the costs and maybe emphasize the cost of holding, their team to abiding to the rules. If not, I don't know if they're personally insured. Is there any type of city liability issue with having them prove insurance prior to releasing it?
They sign a
I'm just thinking
waiver.
of other things besides, you put all the pressure on that one security person to deal with a soccer team that's upset because they lost. I mean, that's a lot of responsibility. But a bond may be something where that's a lot of, money at the end of the game that they get back if they watch their P's and Q's. So.
We've always had staff monitoring the fields, but we felt with the presence of a security guard that for some individuals, they have expressed that they would feel a little bit more comfortable. Sometimes our referees, as Gabrielle mentioned, they like to be escorted to their vehicle because they're afraid that someone will attack them. And so it's just kind of having a little bit more of an enforcement presence there. We'd love to be able to call upon our ranger program, but then again, would be another extension of just overextending them, and so this is why we're proposing this option.
The deposit is a very good idea.
Now these are the two artificial grass fields and breaking down 18 teams, there's people standing in the wings that would love to be party to this. In other words, there's a high demand for this sports facility here in Glendale, so it may be something that, it'll notch up another group of people that are a little more professional about their sport.
Well, and quite frankly, we can make the field available to our youth.
Yeah,
that's
what I was
going to ask.
That's exactly right.
How much do we charge the youth? How much is...
During the youth season, we've dedicated the soccer season to a reduced rate for the youth. It's 50% off the standard rate, right? So it varies between the weekday rate and the night and weekend rate. I believe, off the top of my head, the weekday rate is $40 an hour. And the weekend rate, or actually it's $35 an hour, and then it's $70 on the nights and weekends. So the youth rate would be the $35 an hour on the nights and weekends, and then half of that during the weekdays. So we do
this
provide
fee
them.
proposal that's in front of us is not going to increase their rate for the youth.
No.
It's dealing
This is
strictly with the
solely-
adult.
Exactly, just the leagues. It's not even a rental rate. It's
I do
simply
want
a
to,
league rate.
yes, so that's what I wanted to emphasize, is that there are adult leagues that rent the use of the field. This is our own city municipal league. So we do have adult leagues that rent the field, and we haven't had nearly as severe, or even close to severe, the behavioral issues as we're having with the individuals in our own league. Really?
You have to do better screening.
Yeah, so...
I understand.
Actually, I have a question about that. Do we have some kind of a screening process in place? We don't want to have repeat offenders, and if someone's done this and they've been kicked out once, there's no reason why these people should be allowed back on this field.
We certainly do. At this point in time, we're going to go into this season. We will, because we're going to have less spots than we've had in the past. We'll obviously have a very high demand. We're going to take the teams that have had no behavioral issues whatsoever, and we'll do a lottery drawing for the spots that we have out of those teams. If there's any spots left over after that, we'll open it up to the new teams that haven't played with us before. And if a team receives 3 red cards or more within a season, they're dropped to the bottom of the lottery list, so they don't get to participate in the first round picking. And our history has been that we've always had more people interested in playing than we have spots. So if once they've been dropped to the bottom of the list, that effectively eliminates them from the season for at least 1 year, if not more.
Yeah. And I mean, the whole concept of increasing the fees it has a restrictive effect, and it's not a good thing, but in this context, we have to take all the measures to do so, to restrict the individuals that are on the field, using the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think basically the fee increase is subsidizing the
cost of the security,
Correct.
yes.
Okay.
I have two questions. One, okay, so there's this security guard there, and there's a fight that breaks out, and it gets a little out of hand. Does he have a way of calling him for backup?
His policy, I've spoken with the security agency, and if it's a situation that he can't handle himself, then he would be calling 911 for backup as well. We're hoping, we will continue to have our own staff there, we'll continue to have him. Our hope is that the security guard will de-escalate the situation just by having a presence there, and so we'll have fewer of the smaller issues that can escalate into this larger issue. So we're hoping that will stop it without ever needing to call 911.
Right. And there's no alcohol allowed at that facility, so that also could help patrol that if that's not
Certainly.
being properly monitored.
And then with the other fees that we've raised, a lot of times we'll see how it relates to other places. How do our fees, just in general, I'm not looking for a report, but how do our fees relate to other cities?
Prior to the additional cost for the security, we were right about equal with the other cities. So this does put us slightly higher than the cities, but again, it's the direct cost of the security being placed right back on the teams that are the reason we need the security.
I just thought of a question is, has someone thought about the reasons why we seem to be drawing the wrong group of individuals?
Yeah, we've done some research with other cities, and we've found that the type of problems we're facing are pretty universal with all cities. It's not unique to Glendale. We've got a pretty wide disbursement of Glendale and non-Glendale residents that are playing, and the teams that are causing the problems are as equally dispersed between the residents and non-residents. So there's no one factor that we found is causing it.
And I guess the follow-up question would be then, how do other municipalities handle those situations without having to increase their fees?
It's my understanding that L.A., some of the parks in L.A. have a park ranger that is dedicated to the soccer fields, so they've done the same thing. They're effectively putting security on site with the games.
Yeah, we found that soccer, they can get pretty passionate about soccer. And
Yeah.
these are gentlemen who
It's the new
have
hockey.
passed their prime, but yet don't understand or realize that. They don't like
They're
losing.
supposed to be setting an example
Right.
to our youth.
When does the soccer league start? When will this come into
This would be effective immediately for the upcoming season, which would start in March.
In March.
The
Okay.
last 2 weeks of March is when we would begin games, and we will begin registration, taking the registration as soon as this goes into effect.
Yeah.
George, for clarification, I know the commission wants to know about what do we charge youth leagues or AYSO. This is the only field we do charge AYSO. The other fields are free.
Yes.
Okay.
So, only because there has to be a revenue stream for this to pay
Right.
For this
for the facility, and it's just something we have to absolutely do.
Yeah, a lot of the AYSOs fundraise with snacks and other foods and stuff for their...
And I've noticed damage after the rains, too, around the track, so,
Or the track,
it's
yeah.
costly.
Yeah.
I just have one other question. The security company would have a car there, rather, or is it just one person standing in the field? Poor guy. Or woman.
Well, he would have a vehicle. I
Yeah.
don't know if it is a
Marked vehicle.
I don't know if it's a marked vehicle or not.
Shouldn't be.
That's
We could
something we
request
can
that.
certainly
That's always
request with the
helpful.
service.
You know, like at the malls, you see just the police cars in the parking structure, no police, but the
presence.
presence.
Yeah, and I just want to ask, but I think the only person who can be armed on the facility is our park rangers, so this is an unarmed security person.
Yeah.
Right. It's my understanding that for his protection, they are permitted to carry like a pepper spray of some kind.
Right. Yeah.
So for his protection, he has something, and that's all that I think legally he's allowed
Yeah,
to
we just
carry.
don't want an incident with that. Yeah.
Do you see, George, you mentioned about the youth leagues need more time, And obviously, if you're reducing down the number of teams from 28 to 18, does that then open up opportunities for the youth leagues? So you start to see this kind of shift?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've been talking to both Brittany and Gabrielle and Joanne about, let's get more time for the kids.
Yeah.
And this is a great opportunity. We do have to make the facility available region-wide because of the county funding. So we can't just restrict it just to Glendale residents, but we certainly can reduce the amount of time.
Yeah.
Okay, well, depending upon how the vote goes and stuff, if it's favorable, I'd still like to possibly see like a one-year report back, see how, whether or not the incidences went down.
Yeah, and we aren't seeing the same level of incident with our softball program, just exclusively with our soccer program.
And I'd like to take your suggestion, if you don't mind, and come back with a report about the deposit.
Refundable, yeah, it may offset some things and hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Is there
Well, just
any
that
comments?
I don't think we should wait a year for a report. I'd like to hear what happens at the end of the season.
Sure.
Because then we can institute a deposit, which I think is a great idea, or whatever other measures we need to take at the end of this season. Because if it's not working, let's have a report at the end of the season.
Certainly.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve these increases in the rates, also with your suggestion about going back and looking at either some type of deposit or bond or something. I thought that was an excellent idea. And then explore that, wherever that may lead you as well.
Okay. Will do.
Second.
Okay. Roll call as amended?
Commissioner Khan,
Yes.
Commissioner Ropvogel,
Absolutely.
Commissioner Sharkey. Yes. Commissioner Sinanian.
Yes.
And Commissioner Ward.
Yes. Thank you very much. Nice
you.
presentation. Next item?
Our next item comes under reports for information only, and we have a report on video streaming and archiving of City of Glendale Commission meetings.
And I'd like to call up Scott Harmon, who is with our Information Services Department, talk about the video streaming and what that means to the commission.
Good afternoon, President Ward, Commissioners. I've got a quick kind of an overall of the video streaming put on through Granicus Company. Probably aware through the Civil Service Commission is on. A bunch of the boards and commissions are now starting, and we've been doing the council meetings since June of 2006. It makes it real convenient for staff in the morning to actually access the Granicus website, look through. I don't know how many of you have done it, but we're actually going to zip through this real quick. If you go to the internet and get on the city's webpage, down in the bottom right-hand corner is GTV6. You can watch online video, or you could watch the archiving. What's nice right now is everything we have recorded, maybe there in a second, is down there. And you can pick on any one of those, and it'll come up, and you can not only have the agenda on there, but actually have the real-time video. So your meeting, starting today, will be in this format.
Worldwide.
Now, what are you up to?
Meeting the Glendale Housing Authority, commencing at 2:43 p.m. You have a roll call.
Voting members: Raymond. Here. Mincy. Here. Najarian. Here. Brazian. Here. Quintero. Here. Yusefian. Here. Chairman Weaver.
Here.
You guys will be similar. You can go ahead, and what's nice, if you can get to that screen, is you can see the agenda and you can jump to it. Some of your meetings aren't near as lengthy as theirs, but you can actually go through by line item here, as Kathy puts it on the agenda, and look at different things, how they're voted. Staff can look at it. It keeps people a lot better informed.
Sure. So we can fast forward and freeze.
Stuck here.
It's Microsoft Windows.
Oh. Yeah. Having technical difficulties here.
How long has this been live streamed that you've been sending this out? Is this recent?
Basically, June 2006. What we're going to do is we're going to archive for 3 years. So everything currently for 3 years. If there's a need, we will continue on. But, yeah, we're going to keep everything, like say, including your commission meeting here for 3 years.
If somebody wanted at their home computer then to download that meeting and actually archive it on their computer, is that capable also?
Yeah, they can pick
Or
it
would
up
they-
off of the web that way.
Okay.
And I think we've had on the council meeting, people have picked up, and we're using it on the radio, some of the...
For good or something?
Yeah. I'm not sure it was for the benefit of the city, but, you know.
Okay. So it is an opportunity then for anybody in the public to be able to review meetings, all public meetings, and council actions.
And what's nice about the Granicus company that we use, it can handle any amount of people. The bandwidth they have is virtually unlimited. They do this for literally hundreds of cities across the nation. That's why we had picked them there. They're number one. They do it very well. It's there. Somebody, like say, one of the commissioners can attend this meeting. They're in Hawaii doing their vacation. They can see it online. In fact, I think we had one of our council members phone in as he was watching this before something was on there. It works out very slick. It's very nice.
Fantastic.
God, it's real time then.
Real time. There is actually a 5-second delay. If we were to pull it up here and watch it, you would see a delay. We've got a server downstairs, then we shoot it up to a media server that's up in information services. It then goes out on the internet and gets played out there. So there is a delay, but yeah, it's virtually real time.
Do you archive it, or does this agency archive it?
Agency archives it.
Okay. Very good.
How long does it take them? Like, let's say when this meeting is completed, to get archived? Is it the next day? Is it?
I believe it's a matter of hours. Have they told you when yours will be available?
Commissioner Khan, it can be instantaneous, or it can be delayed so that we can edit the time stamps, if you will, the jump points, to make them more accurate. At this point, I think it will probably be a minimum of 24 hours for us to have that ready and be able to upload it.
Yeah, I think the nice feature is you can go to a part of the agenda.
Right.
Not sit through the entire thing. So that's what the jump points are, Kathy? Is that-
Yes. They are. They're like bookmarks.
That's great.
Yeah, it's very useful. I mean, not only for the public, but also for staff. A lot of staff, like Parks, they can't attend these, and you're not quite sure your lead, what you guys are really leaning towards, but you can actually look in there and see, everybody seems to be nodding, we're going this way, versus, I'm not sure what's happening. We find it very useful on the city council, getting direction from them.
It's great service, now that we're part of it. It's nice to know. Thank you.
Nice to know.
Any other questions, Commissioners? Yeah. Next item?
Our next item is a CIP budget update.
And I'll just do this verbally. The last time I gave you a report, there really isn't much of a change in terms of the CIP. The proposed projects that we did are still proposed. We were supposed to go to the City Council last week with the CIP budget, but that got stalled. We have some issues now that have come up that we actually talked about yesterday at a staff meeting. Some issues that may impact the CIP budget. One of those being the Gladys Drive slope failures and the settlement for that. There's another one on the horizon, which is I think it was Sleepy Hollow. Apparently there was a slope failure there as well, so there may be a settlement in that and some repair. Rock Haven, the price for Rock Haven and how much more we may need, possibility of being involved in the Verdugo Hills Golf Course, and that's a possibility. I don't know if we will or won't, but again, it's up to the City Council to decide. Mountain Oaks and what the city does about Mountain Oaks. So there's a number of issues that have come up that will impact, at some point, the budget, and it's substantial. They're substantial figures. So at this point, we're on a hold pattern until we figure out how or where we find this additional money. But in terms of the parks projects, I think most of them will be okay. Most of the projects that we're proposing will be okay. I also believe that the redevelopment agency took up the issue of tax increment again for commercial projects, and that was approved at 25%. So the Parks Department will see some money coming in once projects are completed. in that
Long-term,
area.
yeah.
Right. So, and then related to what Mr. Milano said, I think, given that there's going to be some money, tax increment money, I think we will be looking at that entire area and how to use that money.
Yeah, and the redevelopment
effectively.
agents.
Right.
Absolutely.
When do you get your money, George? Is it fiscal year? Is that the way it works when these projects come online?
It is fiscal year, and what we do is we estimate the timelines, when we'll be doing design versus construction, and we'll get the money based on that. You know, sometimes we'll need $500,000-$600,000 for design. In 1 year, we'll get that, and next year, we'll get the construction, dollars. So it just depends on the schedule. For example, the money for Columbus, proposed Columbus Elementary improvements, that's in 2009-10, because we don't anticipate that property being available to us by the school district until January 2009. So again, it's a 10-year budget. Anything can change, as you know. But once it's approved, at least for that fiscal year, the money's there.
And
That's
the
about-
funds are property tax base for basically the city allocation. The money's being 100% from city council to the department, or is there actually a figure of property tax linked with the recreation?
No, I don't think there's
community
anything property tax linked.
Okay.
I could be wrong in CIP. I'll have to double check.
Okay.
They are general fund monies that are in there.
Okay, so it is discretionary funds for the council.
Yeah, I think a lot of the property tax here, because it's based on the charter, goes into the reserves.
Okay. Because that may, with projections, may or may not be
Right,
healthy
and-
next year.
Right, and those are some of the issues as well. Both income tax and property tax may be down. It's a down year, so that will affect the budgets. But it may affect operational budgets versus CIP. I'm not sure how that'll work out.
Well, keep us informed.
Will do.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you. Let's move on.
Our next item, under reports for information only, is a report on car park improvements.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that the gentleman left, but Lila Bitar, who's the project manager on the car park project, and I think George also will chime in on this. And this is one of many parks that we're going to be looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the issues we'll look at is security, fencing, cameras, all types of security type of issues that we're facing, not only at Carr, but we're facing at Brand, facing at even Cerritos that was damaged recently. You know, the day after we opened, there was vandalism there. So we're looking at how do we stop this vandalism, and it may be cameras. And as you'll see in the report following, we have Jim Battersby. Jim has set up a camera for us to take a look at that will show you Maple Park via the web. So we're looking at a number of different options.
Yeah, it was, John Kimmel was the gentleman that spoke on it, and with a presentation about live streaming on computer and Channel 6, you can definitely see this presentation.
Okay, and again, we did hold a meeting out there with them, and I think, Lila, you notified them of this agenda item, the folks that were at that meeting, so.
We called the residents.
Yeah.
Whoever signed up for that community meeting, we called them.
Okay.
Fortunately, they're not.
Well, and I assume that you've heard from this gentleman before. All of you guys probably have.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is for viewers who are not familiar with the park. Carr Park is north of Colorado, at the edge of, next to west of the freeway, edge of between Glendale and Eagle Rock, and close to Glendale High, actually. And it serves several thousand people. It's about half-mile service area. Okay, we were looking at two alternatives to improve the area, what I call the concrete plaza around the restroom area. And they both address what the gentleman was talking about. Alternative one addresses the skateboarders' misuse of existing facilities, which interferes with the safety of the park users. And what generally happens, I hope I could use
Or you can take it to the microphone.
It's not, see, I
You had
think
it upside down. No.
if it would, yeah, good, it works. What happens is that the skateboarders launch, they start accelerating from this point on, and they jump across the stairs. That's one course they have. And that is, I believe, is the most dangerous condition, because people coming up that ramp don't necessarily anticipate they're down below, and these guys can jump right in front of them. The other course they take is they jump across this ramp that exists presently. And what happens with the new scope, the scope is to first take that stairs and move it right in front of the wing of the restroom, so they don't have room to accelerate anywhere. We didn't want to cut off, this whole area, so we moved it, made it a small stair. And then also at the community meeting, they talked about improving. Some people talked about having a garden area, something to improve that portion. So we created planters here that would bring some nice garden feature and have some seating along the walls around those planters. So we would take out that ramp, we would take out that stairs, and we create this condition. Then we have alternative 2, which we have that stair the gentleman also was talking about. The kids go up this flat roof, and then they videotape the skateboarders jumping across this. So this became a jumping course for them. What we did is that we took out the stairs. At this time, we don't have an accessible route from the playground area or the South Park area to the restroom. We create an ADA access, a ramp that takes them up to this plaza area, and we get rid of that stairs. This shows both options. We have an option to stain the concrete also in this whole concrete plaza. The cost for alternative 1 that we just talked about is approximately $95,000. Cost to do the small stair and take all this area here. Cost of alternative 2 is $155,000, and to stain that concrete plaza, it's about $13,000. Then one of the security items we were looking at is fencing the park. And when I looked at the fence, we have a lot of mature trees in the park right now. So the north portion of the park, this is the opportunity. This is where we could place the fence so it avoids some of the mature trees. And looked at pilasters that will be along the gate, and we looked at about a 13-foot wide gate, 2-portion gate, and then we'll have some wrought iron for the fence. This is the south boundary of the park along Colorado. And again, we have sycamores. We have large sycamores in there. So we try to place the fence right here in a manner that avoids the sycamores, have the gate at the main route that exists right now, and have pilasters along the gate, and then every 32 feet we would have a concrete pilaster, and so we break that fence. We designed 3 options for the fencing. The options that we recommended this time is this type of fencing design, and then we have other options for the fence. And as I said, we have about 10-foot high concrete pilasters that would be along the gates, and 9 feet high concrete pilasters every 32 feet, so we break that fencing, and the different designs of the wrought iron fence. The cost range for that, for the fencing, for some of electrical work we need to do, lighting work, there's a lot associated with that, came to between $350,000 to $380,000. Gates, of course, as I say, about 13 feet wide. They accommodate cars, service cars coming in, or ranger cars, or whoever needs to go. And then we looked at some parking options that came during that community meeting, and I will hand the presentation to George Balteria, who studied the various parking options.
I had a question, though, before you. You talked about lighting, or there was, the gentleman said something about the lighting shines up and whatever. Is that something that you guys have looked into, and is this part of this upgrade to put more lights out there? Because I'll tell you, I've been out there, I did a project directly south of there for the Verdugo Mental Health Center, and I went into that park a few times, and it's very, very dark.
Yeah.
So lighting is a real issue there.
It's true, yeah, and I think I'll let George, he looked into this, but I was with actually a lighting representative, and we measured the lighting, and what's usually common is a standard is half-foot candle. There it was .01, so it was very low level of lighting.
Sure.
So something definitely need to be done, but George looked at that, and I'll let him give you feedback.
And some of that also is if we're going to install cameras, and Jim Battersby will probably talk about that as will George, you do have to upgrade the lights so that you can see.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We did look at about 4 different options for parking through the course of our meeting with the residents out there, and as you have indicated, the site does have some real dark spots in it. Some of them are because of the nature of the lighting that we have currently out there, which was put in for energy efficiency, and it's high-pressure sodium lighting. And it has pretty good coverage, actually, if you follow the walk only, it has pretty good coverage as far as lighting levels. But as you just get off of those a few feet, about 10 to 20 feet, then it really drops dramatically. And in the back corner, along the along this northeast corner, it's pretty dark back there, minimal lighting. And so we have conducted lighting tests back there, also to help support essentially what we may need to do related to camera and video quality and things like this. So we have conducted those studies. But we looked at a couple different options for the parking situation. And let's see here. We have looked at another configuration. As you can see here, we've, according to traffic engineering, they helped us take a look at this because it was desirable from a resident's standpoint. They have a congestion problem within the neighborhood, and so they were looking at the park to take up some of the slack from the users there and create a parking space somewhere within the park area. And this, from alternative number 2, from a traffic engineering standpoint, makes pretty good sense, although, as you can see, it doesn't accommodate a lot of vehicles, probably about 10 to 12 approximately. But from a traffic standpoint, this aligns with traffic flow pretty well out on Colorado. The difficulty with this is that there's a nice bump out right here, and there's also a pedestrian walkway that comes across from the opposite side of Colorado. And so we all of a sudden complicate this area. There's a storm drain situation here, too, underground, that we would have to accommodate. And within that bump out, there's about, I think you saw the pictures that Lila showed, there's about 4 large Washingtonia trees right along here that we would have to remove and relocate. So it makes it very complicated and expensive option. So for not very many parking stalls, it's going to cost a lot of money. As you can see, alternative number 3 accommodates it a little easier from a park access, and we go around. As you can see, there's a little island right here with one of the protected trees, and then we can go in here, and we have approximately 12 parking stalls with handicap parking, and we can access the walk, provide a pathway and all that stuff. However, again, it's the lighting, the cost, the displacement of park land in this area for a hardscape area. It does satisfy the need to pull some cars onto the park. However, you now create another situation where you have a place for, again, students perhaps to just come there and hang out. So you potentially can accommodate the cars, but you create other operational problems. And as you can see, if they park here and congest this parking lot, from an EMS standpoint and from police and patrol, then you have compromised this path that you have where you can just pull off for one of those emergency vehicles, you can pull off and actually go into the center of the park. Well, it's going to be more difficult now because you have just people generally parking in this area, and we have this lot to maintain. This one's a little more economical. The square footage for these 4 options for parking are about anywhere from about 7,000 square feet to approximately 14,000 square feet, with the driveways and the paths and everything that we have to realign. The area that we displace just from doing something like this, and this would also affect the fencing that Lila was talking about too, because when you locate these parking lots, the gates and the pilasters and other features have to be realigned, to accommodate this, to still provide a secured area. But the Adams Square Mini Park that we just opened is approximately 14,000, a little over 14,000 square feet. You're taking up, by this parking lot, you're displacing an Adams Square Mini Park at the minimum. So,
and in an area that I think Mr. Milano talked about, an area that really is very, very short on
And
park space.
what's driving the parking lot? A request from the community?
Community, yes, primarily community, yes.
What is to the east of that park? Is that the freeway?
Over here?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Actually, there's an apartments and a hotel.
That's Los Angeles.
Yes.
Okay, and then to the west is also apartments?
There's also, right over here, there's actually another motel that's just being renovated.
Okay, so it's between, it doesn't have direct residential adjacent to it?
Only about, let's say, right about this area, you begin residential, again, single-family along
Okay.
this.
I was just wondering, because when you add a parking lot to a park, then it becomes an issue with the park rangers of securing the facility at night and closing parking lot and making sure that people can park their car there and go to the apartment next door, and you're actually impounding vehicles when you close the gates. Yeah.
What was perplexing to us also was they complained about people from not outside the area coming to the park and overusing the park, but yet when you do create a parking structure or parking for service, that you're going to encourage that type of thing. So I was a little perplexed in terms of why they wanted this.
And another issue that they have in that neighborhood is all the activity at the high school. This could become just more parking for people going to the high school also.
Or hang out for kids, too.
You can sign it, but it's difficult.
Yeah, those that have vehicles. Right.
Signing it, no one's going to pay attention to signing.
Like they do with a lot of our other parks. They, at break time, at lunchtime, they go out, take off and jump in their cars and run over to the parks, hang out there, and then go back. And
So this is a design element that you're bringing to us to kind of see whether or not we're in favor of it or not. We can make
right. These are some of the things that brought for the residents, and we wanted to make you aware of these situations and the cost. And as you see, the cost range for doing these parking lots, realignment of the walkways and things like this, we have a cost range in there for about $471,000 for some of the smaller lots to about a little over $550,000 for the larger ones.
Now, this is something some of the community members of the meeting requested.
Right.
We're not in favor of it, but
Well, I'm just wondering, with your total working budget, is this going to offset other improvements that were shown to us as far as the skate issues and some of the fencing and other things?
Absolutely. Quite frankly, we don't have a budget for the improvements for car parks, so we're going to have to go back to council and actually ask for this money.
Okay.
So even the fencing that Lila's talking about, Alternative 1 and Alternative 2 was not in the budget. So all that, we're going to have to ask for money, and this would be just on top of all the other money that we have to ask for. Plus, we're looking at cameras, security cameras maybe. I think we have some sensors, possibly some sensors.
Okay, and the gentleman that brought up the kind of the afternoon, evening activities that take place at that facility, this park is going to be designed with those fences so that it can be secured, and then after hours, if activities take place, then the cameras will notify park rangers or somebody to respond?
Yes.
That's the intent?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, if we decided not to recommend the parking, is it going to be a lot more expensive to go back later and add it? Is there any economy of scale by doing it now versus doing it later?
It's a matter of inconvenience, to the public. I believe that's more the issue. As far as costs go, I mean, it's, yes, it would be a little more costlier later on because of escalation and inflation and so on. However, as far as having a cost effectiveness, as far as the actually getting in some improvements that would actually really help secure the park, if we focus perhaps on the perimeter fencing, the lighting, maybe some tree trimming, things like this, then we'll get better security, quicker improvements that you'll see out there at the park, as opposed to by putting in the parking lot and not doing the others.
Correct.
It's kind of interesting. I mean, I was looking at the different options, and you catch it real quick, and you're thinking, you really aren't getting a lot of parking for this.
Oh,
I mean, you're not really getting much bang for your buck here.
Right.
So, based on what's being discussed, it would seem that it would make sense not to recommend the parking and to explore the other alternatives with the fencing and the lighting or the cameras and whatnot. Because even shifting it in different locations, we're still talking about 10 or 12 spaces.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's going to solve the issue or the concerns that people have as it relates to parking in that area.
And as George was saying earlier, that we fight pretty hard to get new parkland. I mean, we really do, and to use it wisely, as Lila's doing at Cedar and some of the other places. And now all of a sudden we're putting it under concrete and asphalt.
Yeah.
And it really hurts to try to even consider that.
That's true. It is a sort of a neighborhood park, but you do have to take into consideration Colorado is a very fast-moving.
It really is.
Yeah, traffic. And with that architectural island out there, that probably takes away from some curbside parking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we do need to give a place for people to visit and access it versus the hotel guests in the other neighborhoods, so maybe make sure that we don't have any restrictions on parking in certain hours on Colorado, and make sure that we do have at least, some access for public to visit it. And I'm not sure about the north end. It looks like a very limited access, whether there's any street parking up on that side,
and I
that's
think
impacted from the high school kids.
Right, and I think that may be one of the reasons why they wanted the parking lot here, because I think they think people drive in and park in their neighborhood, which is already a tight neighborhood. The streets are very narrow, and there's really no parking. You can barely park on the streets. So I think the residents think by placing this, people that are visiting the park will park here instead of their neighborhood. And I'm not sure that's true, but...
Well, I can speak from personal knowledge. My daughter drives to that high school, and they banned all the kids out of the big parking lot and put them in the small parking lot next to the auditorium and did a lottery. And any kid that does drive to that facility is basically going early in street parking. And there are limited parking on certain streets for street cleaning and other issues. So you do get a huge impact during the school days around that area for kids that are driving to that school.
Interesting.
And really, if their concern is to alleviate whatever parking congestion there is in their neighborhood, the park really isn't meant to serve that purpose, I don't think, so...
Some of the other things that we were looking at the park that constituted some, again, unfunded improvements. Actually, this one is funded. This is the improvements to the playground. This was actually an item that the residents brought up. They would like to see more features out there, more elements, new equipment, things like this. So Sean Torres worked on a proposal to go ahead and make certain improvements out here that will really make this a nice playground and allow fun for all the age levels of kids that frequent the park. I think, Lila, these are just some of the existing conditions for the restroom. Now, it doesn't look anything like this. All these items are all stripped off, and it's down to the bones on this on the restroom. And there's some of your pictures of your project, Lila, and as of very recently, actually just this week probably, project status of the restroom renovation. What it'll look like generally with the the model that is shown right here. reconfiguration of the roof lattice, trying to address keeping people off of there, and by the angles and some of the features. And just some of the things that we had discussed and we would like to take to council are dealing with this item, providing more park ranger and police patrols, more presence again, perhaps the changing of the park hours to an earlier seasonal closing time. That cost relates specifically to the posting of new signs. We don't have rules and regulation signs there, so this would be the inclusion of new rules and regulation signs so everybody understands what's going on there. Improving the park lighting, again, going in, working with the existing electrical system, see how effective that is initially at a low cost range of around $180,000. And then if we want to look at lighting up some of the deficient areas, the dark areas, installing new lighting, putting in a larger electrical panel to accommodate that, then we're looking more at the $310,000 range for a new lighting system. And then we have quite a range of installing security devices at the park. It could range in the $85,000 range to the $300,000 range, depending on the level of security we want to do. Go in there, try some reasonable devices, and then if it's effective or not effective, then looking at ramping up from there potentially. Again, all these are proposed costs and proposed improvements. They are all unfunded at this time.
Thank you. I think there's a consensus of I believe that the parking lot is probably not something that we're, as a commission, are in favor of versus some of the other.
Especially for the cost.
Yeah, and some of the other improvements that look like the park really needs.
We can reflect that to the city council when we do the city council presentation.
Anything else, George?
Just we do have to be out of here at 5 o'clock.
Correct.
So we'll try to move our presentations along quickly.
Okay. Well, if that's all, then we'll move forward. Any other comments, or let's move forward with the agenda? Next item.
Our next item is our monthly activity reports, and the first one is from our Recreation and Community Services section.
That's me. I'll be very brief in essence of time, unless there are very specific questions that any of you have on this month's activity report. We have taken an opportunity to give you our Parks Creating Futures after-school program numbers, and this is for the fall season. These are pretty typical numbers. We tend to have a pretty steady program, but things like weather do affect our program because it is an outdoor program, not an indoor program. So some of the fluctuations in numbers you see there are due to inclement weather. Then we have the Community Center drop-in programming for both Maple Park and Pacific Community Center. Just to give you an idea of the types of drop-in activities that we have there and the numbers of individuals coming to use those facilities. These are fairly consistent year to year, but we do like to present them to you on an annual basis for your information. Our sports classes are also included on page 4 of your packet. The neat thing to highlight here is the Masters soccer program. This is a very positive adult program. This Masters soccer program is actually for seniors, and it's something that we developed during the past year. Have quite a number of individuals. As you can see, there's 693 participants.
They are soccer players.
They are soccer players. They're all seniors, and they're very competitive.
Controlled.
They are very well behaved. They are so happy at having the use of the facility, and they use the facility during our morning and early afternoon hours when all the kids are in school. So this is a prime time for them to get on the field, give them a nice outlet for stress, exercise, etc. And it's a growing program. So if anyone out there would like more information on that program, they can contact our sports complex. Or
They're a real happy group out there.
They're great. And they are going to be looking towards possibly organizing some tournaments and et cetera over the next year because they've had such a nice response to that program. program.
They won't be chasing referees around.
No, no.
The fee increase does not affect them, so they're at a
No.
discount.
Actually, this is something that we do internally with a few volunteers to help organize the group. There is just a drop in participation fee per day of, I want to say it's $2 per person per day, so it's very inexpensive. And yeah, if you're just thinking you're going to go and get in a leisure day of playing soccer because you want to get a little exercise, well, better bring your game because these guys are serious about what they do. So
They're in great shape.
Good.
So it's really nice that this is a nice new program that we're highlighting. Our customer service office monthly permit report and our civic auditorium report, fairly standard for our reporting purposes. And unless you have any other questions, I'll just try to keep it brief.
Great. Commissioners?
No
questions. Okay, thank you. Next group.
Our next item is the monthly activity report from the CIP projects section.
And I will try to do the same and keep it very, very brief, because what I'd really like for you to see is the camera system that we've set up. So we want to try to get to that as soon as we can.
Okay.
Cedar Mini Park, as you know, we did go to the council on January 22nd, received approval, so Lila is now full steam ahead with that project. So we should see a really, really nice design in that Heritage Garden. I think it's going to be one of the nicest parks we've done. It's going to be different than anything else at this point, so it's a really nice design. Maryland Mini Park, we're still in discussion with the BMW dealership about that. He took a look at the numbers and decided he couldn't do the park in terms of what we were proposing, so he's going to come back with another proposal to us, and we'll take that to the city council. Car park we already received. The Glen Oaks caretaker's house, soon that will be demolished. We did have a community meeting out there to demolish the site. And then the project manager is working on the community building in terms of renovation. We've decided now that we have to do the floors as well as the roof. So it has grown to much more than what we anticipated. And then Griffith Manor, we had money for Griffith Manor from the GRA, lost that because of the flyover, the freeway flyover. They gave that back because the bids apparently came in lower than they expected. They needed the money. So we'll start the master planning process again for Griffith Manor.
Okay.
You know, there are a number of residents out there who are concerned about why we stopped, but that was the reason. And just, we have 7 playground equipment replacement projects going, so you'll see new equipment in a number of the parks. Glorietta, I think, Glen Oaks, Fremont, Milford Mini Park, and 3 others, but we are replacing those. And we have an economy of scale. We bought them all at one time. We had planned to do it over several years, but decided to do it all at once so we can save some money.
Are you doing the construction in-house?
No, we're going to be bidding it
Contracting out the surfaces, okay.
That's it for now, unless you have any questions about any of the projects.
No, let's move on.
Our next agenda item is the monthly activity report from Park Services and Park Rangers.
I'm going to have to cut out of here.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
See you next month.
Thanks, Mike.
Very quickly. Yeah, we'll go through pretty quick.
We'll go through this pretty quickly since you guys we have a time schedule here, but I just wanted to show some things that, even though it's supposed to be a dry year, it wasn't all that dry. We had to regrade brick dust infields. We had to redo the fields after the 7 to 9 inches of rain we received over January. The rain was welcomed. I really appreciated it. I would like more, but not all at one time. The sand areas had to be fluffed back up again. They become nice wading pools, unfortunately. We get some large equipment in there to take care of that. Fibar does the same thing. If it gets too heavy with water, Fibar tends to float away. So we have to keep moving it around to keep it from also rotting too, and keep it from getting unusable. You can see them doing that right there. Had some work cleaning up on some shrub beds and some re-soiling around some tables. Again, people with traffic and with the water was washing it away. And then this was the dramatic one here over at Shoal. The construction is going on up at Shoal. They covered up a drain. So we came back from the weekend, and this is what we had here. So we had to go and find the drain. These gentlemen were not real appreciative of this, but they did a really good job of finding the drain and finally finding it. And I don't know, we dumped probably 10,000 gallons down to Long Beach, probably down the street, or wherever it ended up going down there. And yeah, they're finishing up, and then it drained it out at least well enough to so they could actually work on it. We removed an old air conditioner with a crane over at Spar, and we put the new one back on. There's the before and there's the after of the new one. And then Russ and the park rangers up at Duke Majan had a park youth hike. Kids really seem to enjoy what they do up there. Again, they do crafts and they use the natural plants of the neighborhood or the area to show the kids what can be done with it. And there we are.
Great.
Thank you very much. Okay, next item's what, commission and staff comments?
Yes, we're at item 6, commission and staff comments.
Do we have any?
I'll wait until after
Yeah, well,
comments.
welcome.
Yeah. Okay. We didn't have a written report for the park security, only because we still have a couple of community meetings to hold. So we will come back once we have that. But as you know, we had some security issues at some of the parks. One was the shooting at Brand, and some vandalism at some of the other parks. Carr Park, you heard the concerns of the neighbors. Brand Park, Cerritos, Pacific, Palmer. The more use we get out of these parks, the more we're finding. We're trying to keep up with the vandalism. As a result of that, we've taken a number of measures, both at Brand. We've got traffic calming. We have a security person at Brand. We removed the basketball courts at Brand. Same with Carr Park. We removed the basketball courts. So there are a number of things that we are doing, and we'll come back with that report. But one of the things I did want you to see is we do have Jim Battersby, who's our security consultant. Jim's sitting out here. We're looking at cameras and different types of cameras, and web-based, I think. And we'd like both police and the rangers to have the ability to view this in their cars as they're driving around. So what I'd like to do is, before we get to anything, so you do see the camera and the camera at work, I'd like to call George or Jim. George, you're going to come up? Or Jim? Just to come up and talk about the security system, the cameras, and what we're looking at.
Okay.
We've looked at one system. We're going to be looking at different ones, too, to see which one works best.
Thank you.
I want to introduce Jim Battersby, our security consultant. Jim's actually been here for quite a long time working with us, and he has also served as a volunteer to the city, actually to park rangers and to Glendale PD since 1990?
1989.
1989. So he's been here a long time. He understands the parks really well and how the city operates, and has a lot of good options for us to consider. So I'll go ahead and let Jim take over.
So good afternoon, President Ward and Commissioners. What we've done here at Maple Park, because we had a flat roof up on top of the clock tower that the kids couldn't get at, hopefully, is we've set up a couple demos from a couple different manufacturers of some cameras up there. And one is a web-based camera, one is not a web-based camera, but a server-based camera. So we've been demoing both of them. This is one of them just up here right now, kind of going through its pattern, unless Sean's moving it. They could be controlled by the computer, or we could set them into patterns. We were having a little problem after the rain. They just set up a demo up there, and water got into some of it, so they haven't been able to get back out, the manufacturers, to set it up again. Now we're going into some recorded video that we've archived for you. And we've been working with Scott Harmon at City Network so that we can go with the PD model of, they're using these Verizon cards in their laptops in the cars. So with a browser-based system, we can actually allow them to come in on their way to the parks, pull up the video, and see what's going on in the park, so that, one, they can understand whether they need to call for more backup, where to come into the park at, so that they're not put in harm's way. And so we've been running this test with City Network to see how much bandwidth or network resources we could actually take up before we maybe suck down somebody's email and got in a world of hurt with things. So we've been running with Scott Harmon, and that's why these demos are up. We're going to a couple other manufacturers in a couple weeks to test their network, how much network resources they would take. Right now, we have what's known as a full T1 here in the park, so we have fairly good video, but some of our parks are less than, and what we're trying to do is figure out which systems would work for not sucking down or pulling down the pipe on the network.
Yeah. Now, are these armored cameras so that they could actually be not secured away on the top of a building, but could actually be on possibly a light pole or something, and
Yes,
be visible that there is a camera up there, put it in a bubble, or however
Right,
they do it?
these are dome cameras, and they do have them with what's known as an environmental dome, which is bulletproof, or bullet resistant. I won't say bulletproof, but it'll handle up to a .357, somebody trying to shoot at it, or somebody throw a rock at it, or anything else, and it has Lexan in the lens, or the cover, the dome.
If it's web-based, will anybody be able to look at it, or?
No, you'll need a password. You'll need to come in through the city VPN. There's a lot of layers of security to keep just anybody from jumping onto it. Like I said, you have to come into the city VPN. That has to be set up for you. Even after that, you have to know what server address to hit to even get to them. So if they've hacked into your network, they're going to go find a whole lot of other things rather than a security camera up there. So
Now, what is it, T1 lines, they're pretty expensive for a remote park. I don't know if we all have that, or is there?
No, we only have a
DSL
few
or-
parks on the T1. That's why we're trying different manufacturers to see what our resources need to be, so we could pick a manufacturer that'll work as well at a dial-up park as a T1 park as a fiber park.
I got you.
So that's why we're demoing, or having the different demonstrations, so we can figure out what those resources are, and then be able to not end up buying something that works great with a T1 but can't get anything else.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah.
The other thing is, initially we were looking at brand parks, car park, and I think one other park, but now we've had some issues at Cerritos when we first opened vandalism, and we had another issue at Pacific Park recently. So we're going to look at camera systems in the majority of our parks at this point.
Just at least document and hopefully allow the police to use those services. Very good.
We need to be out of here.
We're
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation. Keep us informed. Okay, let's finish our agenda real quick. Are there any written communications?
None that I know of, Commissioner Ward.
Okay. Any comments from our commission? Then, okay, then I'm going to move to adjourn the meeting at 4:58. Okay, thank you very much.